We're
Hey,
here. How's it going, Evan?
it's going good. It's been a hectic week. My 3-year-old started preschool,
Nice.
and we've been between that and just trying to get parenting stuff down. It's just been a long week.
Yeah. He's in live preschool?
hmm
You have to
Yep.
ask, like nowadays it's like could be virtual, could be live. That's cool.
Yep.
How's he enjoying
The,
it?
he's loving it. It's been amazing. We were kind of prepared for him to like kick and scream to get him out the door every morning, and instead today, we left 20 minutes early because he's like, I'm ready. I was like, all
Oh,
right, let's go.
fun. That's awesome. Soon he'll be driving himself there.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully not too soon.
Yes. So welcome everybody who's joining us. We are live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube today. And it's day 3 of my 22 days in a row live. And today I'm happy to be here with Evan Hamilton, who has made the heroic leap from classroom to corporate. And so we're going to talk about his story and how he got where he got. And I invite you throughout the live to talk to us in the chat, ask questions. We love for this to be interactive. I mean, we could talk to each other all day, but we'd love to talk to you and include you in the conversation. So every once in a while, we do not see the comments from LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube. Restream is the platform that we're streaming through, and it is imperfect. So we're going to do our best to stay on top of the comments and interact with you. And if we miss you during the session, then we'll catch up with you in the comments later. So Evan, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm so glad to be with you today. So you and I got in touch on LinkedIn. I think you responded to one of my posts or sent me a message about one of my posts, and then you mentioned what your travels through your career had been, and we both got really excited to talk about it. And so here we are. So first of all, congratulations. I know there are a ton of transitioning teachers who are struggling to A, figure out what they want to be when they grow up.
Yeah.
Right. B, get over the guilt of leaving the classroom and the kids, and C, to then go get the job that they figure out that they want. So you've done all of that. So let's just start talking about that. Tell me, like, how did you get into teaching in the first place?
So from like a very young age, I just always said one of my favorite things to do was to help people. And I just always enjoyed being around kids. And as I got older, it kind of like, progressed from being like the big kid playing with like the smaller kids on the playground to doing things like volunteering with Vacation Bible School. And it just kind of progressed into me being like, I want to be a positive influence on children's lives. And I, thought a great way to do that would be through teaching.
Mm.
Um, and it's funny because you said trying to figure out what we want to be when we grow up, and like I had to do that at 28. But when I did it heading into college, I didn't know, so I kind of went with what I did know, which is I love helping people, and I like trying to make kids' days better, because a lot of kids don't always have good role models around, and a lot of kids don't have a lot of good male role models. So I kind of was like, you know what? Let's kind of go with that. And elementary teaching's where that led me.
Awesome. And so how long did you teach for?
About 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And what shifted for you that, like, you went from this is what I want to do, this is how I want to do it, to something has to change?
so if I'm being completely honest with myself, probably like right from the beginning, I was like, whoa, this is not what I signed up for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as it progressed, my mindset changed, because at first it was like, whoa, this isn't what I expected. And I was like, well, you know what? Like, I don't have the experience yet. I don't have the skills that I'm going to have in 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. It's like, as I get more experience and continue to learn, these things are going to change. And what I realized is as I continued to teach, and year one became year two, and year two became year three, is that I was becoming a better teacher, but the things that were making teaching so hard for me were not improving.
Mm,
And that's kind of where that mindset really shifted from how can I kind of fix teaching for me to teaching probably isn't for me. And it was a very difficult realization to come to.
yeah, that is hard. I've heard so many teachers who are like still in the classroom and who have left the classroom get a lot of pressure from administration when they're talking about leaving or giving their notice. Like, think about the children, which is
Hmm.
like such a manipulative, horrifying way to react and respond instead of saying we have changes we need to make and let's work
Yeah,
on those. So
and
how did you deal with, like, when you gave your notice or when you were thinking about giving your notice, did you get any of that coming at you?
well, leading up to it, I was really worried about a lot of that. But the principal I was with at the time that I was going through this like transition in life where I was like, I can't continue with teaching is just not the best thing for me mentally and my family. Um, you know, my administrator at that time was very supportive. Um, so when I came and sat down and I was nervous as I've ever been to tell him like I'm going to leave in the middle of the school year, he was just very, very understanding, and it was nice. And he was like, let's talk about what's going on. And he
Mm,
he listened to how I felt, acknowledged it, and he actually left me feeling like really validated.
that's
And
awesome.
he wished me good luck, and we talked about kind of the process of transitioning out.
That's great. We've got a comment from Jim. Nice to meet another former elementary teacher.
Hey,
Jim's
Jim.
in higher ed. Um, yeah, it's um, it's interesting to see where former grade school classroom teachers go to. Um,
Hmm.
so how did you figure out, like, from where you were, where to go next?
So that was a whole process because when I left teaching, I didn't really know. I was very much in that what do I want to be when I grow up phase. And that was confusing and difficult because I'm like, wait, I am grown up. Like, why don't I know this? And I was also just mentally burnt out and exhausted to the point where I was like, I need to change quick. So my initial like transition plan out of teaching was just sending my resume out over and over and over again with very little direction. And it was very difficult, and it was like it just felt like a lot of spinning my wheels
Mm,
and not ever going anywhere because I had no direction. I didn't know. I knew I needed change. I didn't know how to go about it, and I didn't know what the exact change I wanted was.
mm,
So for a long time, I was just sending out applications aimlessly, just hoping I get lucky. And then I transitioned out of teaching to a program in North Carolina called the Children's Developmental Service Agency, which is another state program that focuses on newborns to 3 year olds with delays and disabilities. And I found out about that program from a teacher who had transitioned into it. So I heard about that. I was like, okay, I found a teacher who's done it because I kind of felt like I had no one to talk to and like I was on my own. It's like I found someone who did this. So I really set my sights on that, catered my resume as good as I could to the listing, and I was fortunate enough to get an interview that went really well and got that job.
man, you just said a lot of really good stuff. So I wanna come back to how you got in touch with that person, but before that, I heard you say, like, "I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I was already
Hmm.
grown up," right?
Yeah.
And so there are so many people in general, but I've seen it a lot in the education field, who feel like once they've chosen teaching, that's all they're qualified for, that's all they can do, like, you've made your choice, you've made your bed, go lie in it, kind of thing.
Hmm.
So how did you give yourself permission to say, like, this isn't going to work for me anymore? I want something different. I'm going to decide on a different thing to be when I grow up.
Um, in all honesty, some therapy definitely helped. But the it was just I hit my breaking point where
Yeah.
it was like something's got to change. I just mentally like I cannot go through the emotions that teaching is putting me through. The stress that it was putting me through. And there's so many different types of stresses that you experience as a teacher because there's so much pressure from administration, there's so much pressure from the school district, but then there's this immense pressure from yourself because you really do like see yourself as like, I'm doing this for the kids. And like how you said, like when I was telling my principal at the time that I was going to leave, like, what about the kids? He didn't guilt trip me with that, but I did nonstop.
Mm.
I was doing that to myself. But it just ultimately came to a point where it's like, if I keep feeling the way I am, and I identified the problem was my job, and that the stresses that it put me through, and I just hit a point is like, I can't continue like this, and
Mhm.
it's going to make me a worse husband, father, and teacher. So I had to I knew what the problem was, so it's kind of like at that point, it's like I have no choice but to eliminate that problem from my life.
Yeah. Yeah. You did have a choice. I mean, there are a ton of people who just keep going, right?
Yeah.
You made a really powerful choice to do something else for yourself. So
Mhm.
then you got in contact with a former teacher who had done this.
Mhm.
So tell me about like that networking process. Like, how'd you know to reach out to the teacher or who introduced you?
So, I actually didn't reach out to her. I reached out to her future husband. They were still dating at the time, and since then they've gotten engaged and married. But he actually went to nursing school with my wife and works on the pediatric unit. We have a fairly large hospital here in Greenville, North Carolina. So he's been doing peds his whole career. So I reached out to him. It's like, look, man, this is what I've done. This is how I feel. I would still love to work with kids. Like, are there any like type of jobs like for the pediatric hospital that like I could possibly like fit? And he was, so we started having conversations, and he was like, I wish I had something to offer you, but I don't. But he's like, I know how you're feeling because, like I said, his then girlfriend, she went through the same thing with teaching, and she got this job that she's really enjoying. And he was like, I'm gonna talk to her and just see what she says. So that's what led me to talking to Olivia, and then timing just worked out really well with it. Where like the very next week she was like, "There's a posting. It just went live," and like she sent me like the direct link, which I was so glad she did because I could not find the listing on my own. Like it was so hard to find through all the jumble of university jobs available. So she sent me the direct link, and I immediately like just started comparing my resume to the job description and kind of molding it to that job, and the rest is history.
Amazing. So you did that for a couple of years, right? How many years did you do
About 2.5.
that? Okay, cool. And then what was your trigger for saying, now I want something different?
Um, well, the first year was like the greatest thing ever because like even though I was still working, it felt like a vacation because the stress compared to teaching was so like minimal. So I could work 40 hours a week and I'd come home and be like, I feel so refreshed. So that was
Mm.
great. But then I hit a point where, that honeymoon period went away, and I just found myself very unfulfilled. Um, I was still working with family and children, which is something like I like to do, but I felt like a lot of the policies kind of kept our hands tied, whereas like we had all this potential to do so much good for the families and really help them, and policies kept us from being able to really help like I felt like we could. And that would leave you really feeling defeated. And
Mm.
then the other thing was career growth. There was no like there's no career growth where I was. It was like I could be the best employee for 40 years, and I would retire in the same position. There was nowhere to go. And I started, like, as I was becoming more comfortable as a professional, I started getting very uncomfortable with the thought of staying put in one place and not
Mm.
being able to like have goals to work towards. So that became like a huge like factor in me like really starting to tackle the what do I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah. I picture, as you're talking about like doing the same job for 40 years, I'm picturing that guy from the movie Office Space. Is that what it's called?
Uh-huh.
Space, yeah, the red
Hmm.
stapler guy. Just like, an old short sleeve dress shirt sitting in the same desk for 40 years, like it
Yep.
sucks the life out of you. Um, but okay, so cool. So you decided you had to figure out what you wanted to be when you grew up.
Yeah.
We're all still growing up, by the way. I'm 46. I'm still figuring out what I want to be when I grow up. I'm
Hmm.
having the most fun I've ever had right now. But there's so much opportunity. There's like so much cool stuff out there. And so, how did you decide what to do next? So, going from teaching to teaching adjacent nonprofit to where you're headed now.
Um, so kind of kind of like put into perspective like where I was in the whole process. When I started this new job, I would like consider it like it was like a band-aid. Like I had this problem and I slapped a band-aid on it. It was my new job. But I didn't fix like the deeper origin of the problem, which was what do I actually want to be? Like what is going to keep me interested and happy? Um, so going back to like that honeymoon period ending, I started kind of like, what do I want to be? And I spent months, um, like I don't know, like I mean, just no idea. I mean, I was like, it's too late to like try my hand at professional baseball. So what else do like I love? Like, everyone says find a job you love. I'm like, I can't think of any like real jobs I'd love to do all day, every day. Um, and then a buddy of mine who was getting ready to transition out of teaching, um, started telling me about like programming and coding. So he started a program at the local college to do that, and he kept telling me like, "You're gonna love this. Like, you need to do it with me." And I was like super like abrasive. Is that the right word? But I was like just nervous and like I didn't really understand exactly what programming was. Like my experience with coding was what you see in TV shows or movies, and it's all super exaggerated. It's a kid locked in his basement with way too many energy drinks, giant hoodie, who never sees the sun, and they're geniuses. And I
Right.
thought that's what you needed to be to do stuff like that. So he was doing the program, and he just kept like kind of chirping every now and again, like, "I think you'd love it. Like, you should look into it." So then I started looking into it more, and then I realized that actually someone I grew up with from back home, played sports with my whole life, was a programmer and living an amazing life. And he was living out in San Francisco at the time, would take multiple like amazing trips out of country every year. And I'm like, wow. So I was looking at his Facebook, and then that led me to his LinkedIn. And this was like when I still wasn't really using LinkedIn. I saw that he was a developer, so I reached out. I was like, "Hey, how did you like get into this? And like, can we talk more about it?" And we kind of discussed it. But when we were talking about how he got into it, because like I was telling him, I didn't even think this was like a real thing that was attainable for people like us back then.
Mm.
He said, "Me neither." And I met some friends in school who were doing it, and I was like, "Why not me?" And it was just that simple for him. And it's led him to this amazing career, and he's doing so well. And he actually just recently moved back home, which is the Outer Banks of North Carolina. It's an amazing area to live. And he just moved back home, fully remote, like senior developer position. And he can kind of just, he's about to be 30, and he's kind of already at a point in his career where he can just kind of do whatever he wants and not have to stress. And I'm like, I would, I would like that. And on top of that, I'm really interested in technology. Um, I'm not the smartest when it comes to math and stuff, but when it comes to technology, I'm like the first person anyone in the family calls for quick fixes and stuff. So I kind of kind of built off that and really started looking into programming. I was like, I think this is something I'd really like.
That's awesome. So where are you now with that? Because you're moving into another job.
So I guess I didn't. There's more to the story because when I decided I would be interested in programming, what I really decided, like as a whole, is I'd really just be interested in the tech industry. It's
Mm.
just it's so fascinating because it's literally like tech has its hands on everything, healthcare, entertainment, how we shop. I mean, everything is involved in tech in some way, and that's super interesting. Um, so I am currently taking classes at my local college for a web development and programming degree. But in the meantime, I found a job in the tech industry that really interests me called customer success. And so I started looking into that, and I found it ironically on TikTok when I'm just wasting away one evening, like fighting off going to bed. And I was like, this sounds really cool, and it really kind of like hit like a lot of things that interest me. And it was working with a lot of the technology that I was like, I want to be a part of developing, but it was still working with that technology. So I spent like a whole week researching what customer success was. And I told my wife, like, I know I'm just starting classes to do programming, but like I found this like job that like I think I could like potentially like do now that I might like as much as coding or more.
Mhm.
So I decided, since it didn't require a degree either, that while I was working on my degree, I would see if I could find a job in the customer success area of a tech company. And um, with like the plans to continue to get my degree no matter what, but knowing that it could be something that I like a lot to the point that maybe I get my degree and then not even ever use it. Like I was really excited when I found out about it. So that's where I've ended up since then. Is
That's
from
amazing.
coding to working on my coding degree to customer success is something I'm really interested in, but also still very interested in coding. So coding might, if this goes well, coding might become more like a hobby or
Mhm.
like a side hustle, but
Yeah.
too early to tell.
And so how did you find the customer success job? How are you transitioning from education adjacent nonprofit program to customer success in the tech industry?
I figured out how to network, and I really decided one day I'm going to figure out how to make my LinkedIn work for me instead
Mm.
of just having this bare profile. And I kind of dedicated this one afternoon to really figuring out my LinkedIn. I was looking up how to, which I still think my LinkedIn has so much to improve on. But I spent a whole afternoon reading about how to improve my About Me section and all those things. I was doing it, and I read something that's like, don't put like for your job title if you're trying to transition, don't put what you're doing, put what you want to do.
Mhm.
Um, so I just kind of I didn't want to like put just what I want to do because I felt like it to me it feels misleading if I've said customer success manager because that's what I want to do, not what I'm currently doing. So I put what I was actively doing, which my role was called service coordinator, and then added that I was an aspiring customer success manager. And like an hour later, another friend from back home reached out to me on LinkedIn and was like, "Hey, I'm a customer success manager, and I work at this great company only an hour and a half away from where you live, but it's also fully remote, and we have a position that I'd like to refer you to if you're interested." So we talked back and forth some, and he explained like this position is not customer success, but it's like directly under it. And he's like, this is where I started to get to customer success. And he kind of explained how like, the like process and how it was a great stepping stone. So I wanted to tell him like as soon as he reached out, like yes, refer me. But I did my due diligence. I still looked up like what that actual role was in the company, and it really seemed like a great company and a good role, especially knowing that it could lead to the customer success. So the next one was like, yes, go ahead and refer me. And that's what led to me getting my current, or my soon to be current position. I start Monday as a implementation consultant.
Amazing. Congrats.
Thank
It's so
you.
exciting. And great job taking off a little bit of time in between.
Hmm.
People forget to
It's
do
been
that and
really nice.
taking off a couple of weeks in between. And that is like the best couple of weeks to just like rest and recharge
Yes.
and you'd be surprised at how many employers are willing to wait a little bit when you give your 2
Hmm.
weeks notice and you want a little bit more time. We're always afraid, when we are candidates, we are in this like pick me kind of mode, right? And we don't want to
Oh
challenge
yeah.
or ask for too much. And so I really want to acknowledge you for being willing to have a pushed out start date and being willing to give your notice early enough that you could take a
Hmm.
break. That's really awesome, really powerful.
Yeah. And it's
So
been really nice.
yeah, I bet. And then you got to be with your little one, sending him off to
Hmm.
preschool. That's so cool that you got to
Yeah.
really have
So,
time. Yeah,
yep, I've gotten to take them and pick them up every day, which I wouldn't have been doing. So that was really nice.
amazing. So when you and I connected, um, I don't remember exactly how our conversation started, but you reached out to me and you complimented me.
Hmm.
And you didn't ask me for anything.
Uh-huh.
And that is such a lovely way to network. And it's my favorite way to connect with people. I do it too. And this is, I think, a tip for anybody who's on LinkedIn is like, we all have an ultimate goal, right? I'm building a
Hmm.
business. You were making connections and building a network for your current job, for your future jobs. So like, I've never met anybody who's just on LinkedIn for the sake of like just giving to others, right? And there is some give and take, and I think that's really important. And I
Yeah.
give all the time, and people give to me all the time. It's like such a really lovely network of people. But so often you go into your DMs and you're being pitch slapped, right? Have me on live with you. I want to be on your podcast. I want you to build a coaching business that's 7 figures in 3 months. Not realistic, by the way. If anybody's pitching you that doesn't happen. But what I loved about the way you connected with me in the DMs and the way that like I connect with other people, and I'm sure you connect with other people, is that it was just like, hey, I liked your such and such. Thanks for sharing it.
Uh-huh.
Right. And
Yeah.
that was enough for us to start a conversation and then really start talking about your transition and, end up here. And now
Yeah.
we're friends, and that's even better. So I just, I'd love to hear what your philosophy is on LinkedIn. Like, what are you there for? And what's important to you? And who do you want to be connected to?
Um, so my philosophy, I don't have that yet. I'm still working on that and the mission statement and the logo.
Your
But
vision and values as well. Yeah.
you so it's not so much like my LinkedIn philosophy, it's just like my like how I am as a person.
Mm,
And like I know like for me personally, like I'm very much like like have a servant's heart. I want to
mm,
help people as much as I can. So if someone comes and says, "Hey, I need help," I'm gonna be like, "Let's do it. Let's figure it out." But I also know that it feels so much better to feel like it's not just transactional. Like I need help, and then you don't hear from them again. Like
mhm,
I feel so like I know me personally, I will still try to help, but like I know that like when someone tries to build a relationship and then it's like, hey, like if you ever have a chance to help me, like it just feels so much better in general. And knowing how that makes me feel, I don't want to purposely put people in a position that would make me not feel like as great as I'd like. So I just kind of like really try to be compassionate and think about like how things will affect me or other people before I ever like act or react. And so it just really is like I would prefer someone reach out to me, try to have a conversation before asking. So I make sure that if that's what I want, why would I not do that for you?
mm. I love that. So amazing. So we're coming up to the end of our conversation.
Hmm.
This has been awesome. I think you're really an inspiration for people who are looking
Thank
to
you.
transition out of the classroom, and like what a great opportunity to continue to decide what you want to be when you grow up and continue
Hmm.
to be curious and full of exploration and just really I love your belief in yourself that like you can do whatever job you feel like doing. That's so awesome.
That was
Any,
hard to get to.
I bet, yeah. Any final words of advice to somebody who's in the position you were in when you were thinking about leaving the classroom?
My biggest advice or like guidance is this, that like you're not alone. When I did this originally, I don't feel like it was so like outspoken as a whole like it is right now, of how many teachers are not happy with their career in it. And it's good to know that you're not alone. And LinkedIn has an amazing community of teachers who are actively trying to transition or have transitioned out of the classroom, who are still there to offer help. And I wish that I had realized that was there when I was going through the transition and all those questions and the guilt of leaving my students. Like, I wish that I had those resources. And so if you're, on your way out or even just curious, just know you're not alone and that there's a huge support system out there.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being with me this afternoon and talking about this. And I hope people connect with you who are thinking about doing this. And I think you're just really inspiring, and you're just a delight to be with. So thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I had a great time.
Awesome.